I'm a big believer that faces are the new logos. Welcome to another episode of Chief Influencer. I'm your host, Anthony Shop, co-founder of Social Driver. Let's face it, Washington is the center of influence in the US and arguably in the world. Chief Influencer features leaders who have figured out how to break through in today's fragmented and fast-changing environment. Social Driver teamed up with the Communications Board and the George Washington University College of Professional Studies to recognize these incredible leaders as chief influencers and highlight how they inspire and influence others. Welcome back to another episode of Chief Influencer. I'm Anthony Shop, and today we're revisiting a conversation that has only grown more relevant over the past year. About a year ago, we sat down with three powerhouse leaders in the health and nonprofit space to tackle a question that I think every executive is asking. What is the actual ROI of being active on LinkedIn? Joining us for this deep dive were Chuck Henderson, CEO of the American Diabetes Association, Katie Schubert, President and CEO of the Society for Women's Health Research, and Steve Taylor, President and CEO of the Arthritis Foundation. Since we first recorded this session at the National Health Council's Health Leadership Conference, LinkedIn as a platform has become the primary stage for institutional trust and patient advocacy. It just keeps growing. So whether you're leading a global health organization or a niche nonprofit, the insights shared by Chuck, Katie, and Steve remain a blueprint for digital leadership today. Let's dive back into the conversation.
I'm very excited for this next panel. And over the past 2 years, Anthony Shop has given us a crash course in how to maximize organizational influence on LinkedIn. Today, he's back to moderate a panel featuring members of the NHC who have put these skills to use and become chief influencers. I know that I have been trying my best to become a chief influencer. I guess I haven't achieved that title yet, but I'd like to ask if all of you could connect with me on LinkedIn, perhaps as a first step. Anthony is the co-founder and chief strategy officer at Social Driver, a digital services firm that helps companies and nonprofits establish winning strategies with social media, websites, creative, and advertising. A former newspaper reporter, Anthony was the first new media professional elected to the National Press Club's Board of Governors. He will be joined today by Chuck Henderson, Chief Executive Officer for the American Diabetes Association, Katie Schubert, who's the President and CEO for the Society for Women's Health Research, and Steve Taylor, who's President and CEO of the Arthritis Foundation. Please welcome Anthony, Chuck, Katie, and Steve. And Anthony will moderate. So turn it over to you, Anthony.
Thank you. I will connect with you right after this if I haven't already. Well, I'm thrilled to be back here for my third year in a row and our first year for Social Driver as a sponsor. So just really love the work that the NHC does. When we put something like this together, I think we do it weeks or months in advance, and then I think we always hope, are we going to meet the moment of what people care about today? And things are changing really fast. And I was listening to the remarks from Louise. She mentioned tools and inspiration. And I said, oh, good. We are going to do that. You're going to get some tools this morning and also inspiration from these three leaders. She also said that number one of her 3 points was that trust is more important than ever. And I think that's absolutely right. And we think about where we build trust. It's not just with the logo of our organization, but it's through our people. So that's going to be a part of our focus today. So I'm going to just share a couple of quick highlights, and then we're going to turn it to our panel. But one of the things that I have found working with leaders is, if a TV station calls, they will move mountains to make the appointment to go to the studio. They know they can't send their logo. They have to send a person. But when it comes to their digital presence, they often think, oh, I'm too busy for that. We have a comms person who can post on our company page. And my lesson to them is, when it comes to digital platforms, when it comes to LinkedIn in particular, it's kind of like the TV station. You can't send your logo to do all the work. You have to send a person. And you have 3 people today who are doing that really well. It's because people trust people. And like Louise said, trust is more important now than ever. So I want us to think about where we have to build trust and who we have to build trust with as we think about how to focus our strategy on a platform like this. I'm a big believer that faces are the new logos, and you have a really great advantage here with NHC, is that look at all these great faces that you see, these are all from LinkedIn photos. NHC's community shows up on these platforms and connects with one another, not only physically through a few big events like this a year, but also you see that happening digitally, which I think is part of the power of this community. So I get the privilege of hosting this really cool podcast, I think it's pretty cool, with George Washington University called Chief Influencer. And I've interviewed about 70 different leaders, from the Swiss ambassador to the US, to a couple members of Congress, leaders of big companies, and these folks, 2 last season, Katie's this season. So she's coming up. And we've learned some pillars of influence from these many guests. So I want to just tell you what those are, and then any of you who know me know that a couple things I really believe in are showing, not telling. So I have some pictures, some real live images of these folks in action, but some of you in the room that may not even know you're on my slides. And that leads to my second thing I really believe in, the power of peer pressure. I think it's one of the most powerful forces in the world. So when you see one another doing such a great job, it makes all of us want to step up and do a little bit better. So the 5 things that we've learned about being a chief influencer are these behaviors that we see. The first is that chief influencers recognize you can't have champions on the outside if you don't have champions on the inside. So you have to start in the center. Second is that we live in this world where our professional and our personal brand are no longer completely separate from one another. So we have to embrace the gray and be willing to show up authentically. And that means different things for different people. You'll see some examples of that. The third is we have to share the stage with others. Often leaders say, well, Anthony, I just don't want to talk about myself all the time. I say, perfect. Don't do that. Talk about other people. Celebrate them. Uplift them. That is the best way for you to get your message out. And frankly, it feels a lot better than just talking about yourself. The fourth thing is, just like in any of your industries, you have to learn the lingo, the acronyms, the special vocabulary. I mean, in your world, I don't know that there's any more complicated space where you have to learn so much and it changes constantly. Well, the good news is the stuff you have to learn on these platforms, while marketers like to use fancy terms to make it seem confusing or really difficult, it's not that tough. Making sure you use that @ sign and you tag somebody on LinkedIn is one of those little things that goes a really long way. And then lastly, I know that when you see other leaders and they may have a book or a podcast or they're on TV or they have tons of followers, it can be a little overwhelming. There can be this sort of sense of FOMO. And I think the thing I've learned from the chief influencers I've interviewed is that they understand what their goal is and they just focus on one step at a time toward their goal. And while they use others as inspiration, they try not to get too distracted by it, because we really have to focus on ourselves and where we're going. So one step at a time, wherever you are. If you haven't logged into LinkedIn for a year, that's okay. We're going to tell you a step you can take. And if you're pretty active, like these folks are, hopefully you'll hear something from them that'll inspire you to take a further step beyond. So I want to show a couple quick examples of these folks and a couple others in action, and then we're going to jump into questions for the panel. Chuck does an excellent job on LinkedIn. I found him on LinkedIn actually before we ever met in person. And this is an example of him up on Capitol Hill. And I think you can see that, all these photographs, sharing the stage, the use of hashtags, which is learning the lingo. And you can even see people responding to him, engaging, saying that they're proud of the work that he's doing, even some past colleagues who are now educated about what the ADA is doing because of how he shows up. But Chuck also does a good job of embracing the gray and showing a little of the personal side. In this example, you can see a happy National Family Day with his family. And this got over 340 reactions. It actually did better than the Capitol Hill stuff. And so showing that personal connection is a really good way to keep your audience engaged. I often show this video of you in the bike app. I won't put it in this year because I've done it 2 years in a row, but also you see some great videos from him. Katie has been doing a great job on this platform as well with a focus on advocacy, which we'll hear her talk about. And I think you can see, again, similarly, the photography, tagging many other people. So she's sharing the stage with them so they see the post. And then I loved this because you see somebody who says, lovely to meet you in person, and she replies. You know how important it is to reply to somebody's comment? You don't want someone to go in for a high five and you leave them hanging. You want to high five them back. And that's what Katie's doing there. But a lot of busy leaders post and they don't log on for a while and they miss that opportunity. This is a video I want to show you that was on Katie's. So I just pull a little snippet of it. Isn't that cool? Yeah. Congratulations. Over 100 people reacted to that, but I like how she took a lot of what she was doing throughout the week, pulled it together so people could get that backstage pass into what it's like being a leader of this organization. And that was from Instagram. And Katie can talk about that later, how she has been cross-posting content from other channels like Instagram. Steve does a really great job. When I met with Steve a while ago when we interviewed for the podcast, he talked about how he really uses this tool to engage with his workforce. That's the center of the bullseye for him. And you can see when he celebrated his 3rd work anniversary at the Arthritis Foundation, tons of his employees started replying and posting comments that are so genuine. I mean, you couldn't pay people to make comments like this. You know it is authentic and from the heart, saying how grateful they are to work with him. And I think it's because Steve invests in engaging with his audience, his own people in this way, that they pay it back and engage back with him. This was also a good one, that personal connection, because the river's green in Chicago. We know why that happens. And you said maybe it just happens to be because it was a juvenile arthritis day. Maybe we hope that's why they did the green. But it was fun. And in the comments, somebody even posted a picture in their city where the river was also green and has a family picture in there. So again, tying in that personal connection.
All of those who play such a critical role in
podcast clip
patient
for you.
health are at the table at the National Health Council. And our role is to convene and create consensus on issues that are important to patients. We just have this rich history and an active present in looking at how patients can be best served by the policies and by the practices that are around them in healthcare.
I think what Eric Racine at Sanofi is doing on LinkedIn and with the Patient Advocacy Voices podcast is really unique in the industry, because he's taking leaders like Randy and others and he's featuring them and their stories, making it all about them. If you don't subscribe to it, I highly recommend it, because several of your colleagues in the room have been featured on here. But not only is it effective because people like it, it puts them at the center and it works, it's also effective because you're more likely to notice it if your friends are connected and if it features them. And so then you want to be part of it. And so it's been a really great way to build connections, I think, beyond just coming to meetings like this. So really, really love seeing that. But again, that personal connection, this is when Eric was at the Olympics. I think that's where you got the most likes, Eric, is you have a picture with the Olympics rings and the Eiffel Tower, and did a good job of explaining why you were there and the connection to your company. So I'm always looking for those overlaps. If it's a Venn diagram, where is your personal brand and where is your company's work, and how can you find that intersection? And that's where you often see that big spike. One other video I want to show you.
This is Dr. Gene Wright from the COPD Foundation. I'm up here at about 9,000 feet, and you can tell I am clearly short of breath, which just reminds me of what our patients feel every single day.
Isn't that powerful, that story? Great job, Gene. She's in here. Where are you in the room? There you are. Yeah, we were chatting in the hallway, and she told me about this. And so I had to find it and include it because I thought it shows that personal connection. She got, almost 200 people to react to it, but she ties it back to the work that her organization does. And you can even see people's reactions to it in the comments and how powerful that was for them. So those were, again, I had to always pull some examples and stalk people in the room. I could just do that for like 2 hours because there's so many good ones for this community. This episode is brought to you by the George Washington University's College of Professional Studies. With in-person and online programs ranging from master's degrees in public relations strategy to certificate programs in digital communications, GW offers more than just the credentials to help working professionals get ahead. It prepares them to be leaders in their field. I'm a proud GW graduate myself, and I can attest that the faculty members combine academic rigor with real-world lessons that can't always be found in textbooks. Check out cps.gwu.edu for more information. But what I want to do is turn it to this really tremendous panel that we have today. And the first thing I want to ask is, each of you has really invested in building your presence personally, but especially on LinkedIn. And everybody in the room is so busy, they want to know, what's the ROI? Why are you doing this? Where are you seeing results? So Chuck, I'd love to start with you. How do you see the ROI of investing in your personal brand on LinkedIn? And do you have any examples you could share with us?
Absolutely. But first of all, thank you for having us, in the esteemed panelists on here. And so I've done a lot in my life, but I'll tell you, this is a bucket list moment for me because when I met you a couple years ago at the NAC and you showed my profile, like I really love LinkedIn. I was one of the first users on LinkedIn back in like 2004. And so for me, it was like a validation that I finally did something right in my life. So thank you. But, from a personal branding standpoint, and as you mentioned, it's absolutely not about me. If you look at everything I post on Facebook, on LinkedIn, it's all about somebody else. I'm promoting the ADA and promoting, our staff and our teams and our partners. But I will tell you, one of the most, I would say seminal moments was probably about a year ago, and a potential funder reached out after watching the posts and the social medias and the things that I do on LinkedIn, and say, Chuck, we watch you in the organization build, and we think that you guys are doing some really good transformational work, meeting people where they are in the community, and we would love to talk about a potential partnership. And so fast forward to right before the holidays, and so when you talk about an ROI, it was a $13 million ROI. Wow. And so that happened. I can't say the partner, but I will tell you though that it was because of the activity on LinkedIn and the positivity. And so did I set out to do that? Absolutely not. But when I became CEO at the ADA, they said, well, Chuck, what do you want to be known for at the ADA? I didn't talk about business. I said people, talent, and culture. Because when I took over at the association, employee engagement was down at our lowest levels, right? And so, I want to build a culture where people want to embrace, and have a positive, and lead with empathy and insight. And so I think that, LinkedIn has also been a great retention and also an aggregator to actually bring on talent at the ADA as well. So.
And you mentioned the employee engagement. I think for folks who don't know, when you joined, the Charity Navigator score is something you keep an eye on, and it's gone up a lot.
Yeah, and so again, it takes a team, it takes a village. My COO, Charlotte Carter, is sitting out in front, and so yeah, it was a 2, and it was teetering on going down to a 1. And so obviously we've upped our game in transparency and different things to get the score up. But yeah, happy to say that it's a 4. We just want to keep it at a 4. So
yeah. So the online reputation piece is important for the brand, like through Charity Navigator, but through what you do as the leader. And I think hearing that you attracted a funder, that obviously there was a lot of other steps that went into it, converting that to a $13 million investment is huge. Thanks, Chuck. Mm-hmm. Katie, I want to turn to you. So I know you're based in DC. You do a lot of advocacy work, and LinkedIn is a part of that for you. We got to see the video of the day in the life where you were going all over the United States. Can you talk about do you see the advocacy results as focusing with other partners, with your grassroots, or with both?
Yeah, so thank you for that. I would say last year I sat in this room and all I wanted was like, okay, I have to focus on LinkedIn. I want to have my profile on Anthony's slide. So be careful what you wish for. And it was really daunting, right? Like, how do you really think about this and how do you put the time in to do it? And I remember thinking, God, Steve's so good at it and Chuck's so good at it. How are they doing it? But it's possible. But I think for us, thinking about how we can activate the folks both inside of our current circle, but also outside of it. I mean, the access to people who we wouldn't have had access to before, to motivate them to do something, or if we see that they're doing something that we want to maybe get in on or help them with, has been really important for us. So on the grassroots side, getting us out with audiences. We're not a membership organization at the society, so we don't have a natural grassroots network. So this is a way for us to activate folks who we would like to have in our network, but also on what I would call as a recovering lobbyist, those grass tops, right? Like, how do we get other people to engage with us to carry our messages forward? Or if they're going to the White House or the Hill, can we help incorporate some of our messages there? So I think it's been really important to use LinkedIn that way.
Thank you. That's great. And do you want to just say something, since we showed that video, but you told me that actually came from Instagram. That's a really good trick about how you're using not just LinkedIn, because there's other platforms. Can you mention a little bit about those too?
Yeah. So first of all, it was really scary to make that video because it's like, am I doing this the right way? Am I going to embarrass my teenagers? Yes. You will, and you'll hear about it. Also, don't put so many selfies on your photos. Like, I don't know. So I know Instagram, and so I know I was using it for personal use, just sharing my family and putting up stories. So I knew how to make a reel. I don't know how to do TikTok. And then I thought, I wonder if I could put this on LinkedIn, because it showed a lot of the really cool stuff that we were doing. And they actually made it very easy. I was able to download it and then just reshare it onto LinkedIn. I didn't need to make 2 different things or 2 separate posts. It actually made it very easy for me to do.
Yeah, and I just think that's a really creative example of thinking about the different channels that you have that work for you, because you may have a blog or you may have, video content from somewhere else, and there are ways to repurpose that. And LinkedIn right now, if you don't know, is really pushing vertical video. They are promoting vertical videos, so if you post one, more people are probably gonna see it, just because that's something that they're really pushing to compete with other platforms. So the fact that you got a vertical video on there, but you did it by sort of hacking the system and using something from Instagram, I thought was really impressive. Okay, I wanna turn now to you, Steve, and you're thinking about influence is not just on the outside, but it's also on the inside. And you even told me kind of a story about the way you thought about influencing inside physically and digitally when you came into your role as CEO at the Arthritis Foundation. So can you share a little bit about your approach?
Sure. So if you all know me, this is my 22nd National Health Council conference. So I've been around a long time. And for those small organizations, I was I'm not a small person. I'm a CEO of a small organization. I always say a small CEO of a small organization. For all of you small organizations, surely I've moved to a large organization who have a budget, which gives us an opportunity, but you all can do that even as a small organization CEO as well, and really influence your volunteers and the followers that you have, even if you don't have a large staff. For me at the Arthritis Foundation, when I joined 3 years ago, we had just went through COVID cutbacks. Over 200 staff out of the 350 were cut. We really had a culture challenge inside the organization. Not to mention, right prior to COVID, we had merged, I was not there, merged affiliates and into one national nonprofit organization, which left a lot of bitter feelings throughout the organization, staff and volunteer-wise. So when I became CEO, I knew I had to change the culture of the organization. So as Anthony kind of alluded, I did things internally, physically, for a number of ways, both working with my staff. I met with all 165 staff within my first 30 days. I also moved my office to the center of the building, up by the kitchen, up by the front desk, not back in the back corner, so that people would see me. But then I saw Anthony in the February conference following my becoming CEO at Arthritis, and I learned a lot from his presentation. And so then I started working with Anthony to really figure out how I could lean in, even on the social media platforms, to really start to build that culture. So my podcast that I did with Anthony is titled "People Don't Care How Much You Know Until They Know How Much You Care," because that's really been my motto my entire career. And so taking time to know people, being authentic with people, commenting on people's other posts, thanking them for your posts, taking that time, which you do in the office by moving my office physically up front, I get to see people, but the people that are at a distance, I'm able to engage with on social media as well. So that's been a real philosophy of mine, to create that culture. And I'm proud to say a number of ROI things have happened. Our retention rate before COVID was at 32%. Again, I was not there. Last year, we were able to get that, or not retention, our turnover rate was 32%. Last year was 8.9%. So we've changed the retention. Grow that amazing, really a culture shift of the organization, which has been great. And we have a huge following now. We're up to 240 staff. So growing again, as we were before COVID as well.
One of the things you said in our interview was that LinkedIn is actually really efficient for you because it's like a digital water cooler.
Yes.
And that you can engage with people that you just can't always see physically and engage with. And I think that is a really good analogy for us to all think about, because, if you walked into the kitchen think about how you would interact with your team. You wouldn't just say, the latest announcement, ignore them and leave, right? That would be kind of strange. But how do you show up on LinkedIn? That's what a lot of leaders do. They log on or they get their team, they post that post Monday morning, see you later, and there's 10 comments on there that nobody ever responds to. So the social behavior we have in real life, we also want to have online. And Steve, can you talk about, and I want to hear from everybody on this, but you could start just like how you make time for it. Because I know all of us are thinking, I have so much to do. I don't have time for this. You all three make time. So how do you make time? What are your tricks and tips about how you focus on this?
Yeah, so on LinkedIn, I do all my own posting. I don't use any of my comm staff. Sometimes they'll send me something to utilize, but I do all of my own posting. But I think the most important part is the comments and reaching out to other people through the platform is very important. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to. You can have typos as long as you're doing something to engage with people. So sometimes some people are worried about being so perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to do something. Even if you haven't done anything on LinkedIn or any social media platform, start somewhere and you'll start to figure out how you do it. I find time on airport shuttles, going to pick up a rental car, sitting in the airport, at home, and when I wake up in the morning, when I'm having my coffee, whatever, I just quickly go on. I try to congratulate people on work anniversaries, whatever I can do just to engage with people. So you have 5 minutes here and there, but just take time, and it doesn't have to be perfect. It can be short and sweet, but they appreciate it more than you ever know, as we all appreciate when people comment on our posts as well. So you can find time for sure.
What about you, Katie?
I mean, I think that's right. And I remember taking that back with me last year because that was my thought. Like, there's no way I can't add one more thing to my list. But once I started seeing the value of it, I actually started to make more time to do it, right? So I guess over my morning coffee, when I'm checking emails or whatever, I go on and see what's up. I also noticed that I just learned this, so I don't know how influential I am. I can schedule posts, which is super, super helpful because I am always like in the moment and then I forget the next minute. So I'll put something in schedule. I also post myself. The team will send me suggestions, or like if they see that I did something, they might want to turn it into a longer form blog and they'll start that for me. But I like to make sure I'm in there and putting my own personal spin on it. But it really is like every day, every other day checking in, and then the replying piece too. Like sometimes you don't even have to post. You can just like it or say thank you. And that just takes a couple of minutes. That doesn't take very long to do.
Yeah. Somebody who I interviewed told me, and I've seen this as like a pattern, is if you do something when it's sort of fresh in your mind, like right after an event, it's going to be just easier and faster, right? If you put it on the list and you don't get to it, you may never get to it. But you may not want to post that picture from dinner at 11:30 p.m. And if we look at just the LinkedIn analytics, the most popular posts, that kind of sweet spot is the morning time, like 9 to 11, they say. I wouldn't worry too much about it, but often what that means is, okay, you had dinner last night with a group of people, maybe you write that post really quick and post the picture while it's fresh, but use that schedule button to schedule it the next morning for 9:30 a.m. or whatever it is. And I've just heard that from many leaders as a habit that they use, and it sounds like that's your approach as well.
Yeah, if it doesn't get written almost immediately, it's probably not going to happen.
Yeah. Chuck?
Yeah, no, I mean, I would echo everything that they said. Obviously, I've been using it for 24, 25 years now, so I just incorporate it into everything I do. And similar to them, I do most of my posts. The comms team will, suggest content or different things or long form types of things. But I really embrace it, And I know that I'm making an impact on people, whether it be funders, whether it be staff, whether it be just people in general. I've had people reach out to me and say, I'm 60 years old. It's the first time I've got my A1C1 checked, right? So like for me, that means a lot, or from someone, living with type 1 diabetes, this is an inspiration. Or when I go to the ADA type 1 camps, which I love to visit, I've had parents reach out to me. It's really impactful because we really think you care. So it's being intentional, and putting other people above yourself, and that's what it's all about for me. So
absolutely. We all know that the media landscape's very fragmented, and if we want to reach people, we have to try different things. One of the things that I heard from one leader I worked with was that they would have these donor emails go out, but then they'd see the person and say like, oh, we're doing, and they didn't know about the announcement. And they're like, how do you not know? You're on my email list, but this person gets thousands of emails. Sometimes it puts it in the promotions tab on Gmail. And so they started posting more of these announcements on LinkedIn, and they realized that some of the people who aren't so good on email are good on LinkedIn. vice versa. Some people may not be on LinkedIn, but they might be good at email. So just finding this as, it's not going to be one size fits all silver bullet, but the example you gave, these are people you're able to interact with on LinkedIn that may not be paying attention to those other channels.
Yeah, and one thing I just want to add, I think I brought it up earlier, but I mean, even from a talent recruitment standpoint, when I first got to the ADA as chief development officer in January of 2020, Charlotte can attest, I couldn't find anybody to come want to work for the ADA, right? But now, we've just been inundated with folks that want to join the association, and they want to join the association for the right reasons, but also what they see, visually, from a social standpoint. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I want to ask each of you about that, and then I want to open up, here's some questions from you all, so start getting those ready. But you mentioned, for recruitment, for example, seeing content on LinkedIn about the ADA changes the way people see the association. So that's not just content from your company page, it's content from you, but it's also content from other people who are board members, volunteers, and employees. So what are some of the things that you've done to try to get other people in your organization engaged, where it's not just you as the only person posting?
Well, Anthony, I'm glad you asked that question. We hired your firm. So we hired Anthony's firm, and they've done a wonderful job. I know he's like, Chuck, don't talk about my firm, but I mean, it's probably been one of the best investments that we've made at the ADA since I've been there. And so I actually handpicked 12 or 13 ambassadors that I follow on LinkedIn at our association. And so we had a training, and Anthony and his team did, a really, really good job of understanding kind of what motivates them to actually do this and incorporate it into their day. And so they just felt really good about being handpicked, to take on this effort. And now we're about to start phase 2 to figure out how we bring more people into the funnel in the association. So there may be some that are maybe introverted a little bit, and so the ambassadors are gonna be assigned 2 or 3 or 5 people in the association to kind of walk them through why and how effective it is to talk about the ADA, or to even be on LinkedIn socially. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think what I've found is building the capability is one, but building confidence is the other. Because if people don't have confidence,
Right.
and they just think it's overwhelming, they're not going to do it. And just helping, and them seeing you do it helps build that confidence, because you lead by example. Katie, have you gotten more people in your world to do it?
So I am a small CEO, so a very small organization. We have 10 people and not a large budget. And so we had done some sort of internal training, if you will, right? Like I sort of did a lot of reading on what I wanted to do, took a lot from the NHC meeting and Anthony, and looked at what other people were doing to say, I would like to emulate this, and this is how I want to interact. And then we begged somebody that we knew in PR to come and do a lunch and learn for our staff for free. And they did. And then we sort of challenged ourselves. Okay, are you going to update your bio? Are you going to aim to post X amount of times a week internally? And then we also have started with our board members and our working group members, giving them template posts. And they love it because they can just easily copy and paste. And, here's the photo that we took at this meeting, because we realized we weren't doing that, right? We're really proud of the work that we do, but we're moving so fast that we're not talking about it outside. And this gives us a good, quick, easy opportunity to share that. And it gets them involved in a way to say, look at this organization that I'm working with, and here's what I do and why it's important to me and why you all should care too. But it's been very low budget right now, but I think it's been very useful.
Yeah, and I would agree. So we hired Anthony's firm before Chuck did. And he came in and also trained about 12 influencers within the organization that we chose. And then we've, of course, done the trainer as well within the organization. And Anthony's coming to our all-staff summit in March to train additional staff and just motivate them, really, more than train them. As a small organization, you can do that without hiring Anthony's firm, although I will say it's very cost effective. But you can surely just start somewhere. I always tell people, I remember Anthony's first presentation, someone raised their hand and said they were an introvert, and Steve Taylor's not an introvert, if you know me. And they said, I'm nervous about I'm not really an extrovert. I don't know if I can do that. It's just start somewhere and be true to who you are. If you're an introvert, that's fine. Post like you would post. Just share your company's post, your organization's post. You don't have to write something new. Maybe write a commentary on your company's post, but you don't have to be creative. You don't have to do the Instagram thing. You don't have to be one of us, but just start somewhere versus doing nothing. And then try to find someone in your organization that might be even more of an influencer, or they might have the personality that you think could be a better influencer than you, and help them as well engage as well. And so things like that you can do no matter what size organization you are. But definitely making sure you lean into this because it does create a following, great education and information, and it's been a great ROI for us for sure.
Great. I want to just tell you 2 resources. I'm a little, thank you, and also a little embarrassed because of the endorsement there, but I want to tell you, we recorded last year's keynote, which goes over all the best practices. And anybody who wants that, you could take that, I will send it to you, Jen can send it to you, or I can send it to you. If your team wants to watch that, you can do a lunch and learn about it. You can share with resources. So please, free resource I want to make available to anybody. Second thing is we have a partnership with LinkedIn where we do a quarterly roundtable in their DC office. So it is DC based. Several folks in this room have come to those roundtables before, also members of the NHC staff. If you or one of your staff are in DC, you want to get invited to one of those quarterly roundtables so you can meet with people at LinkedIn, and it's just a discussion, I will invite you. So send me an email, add me on LinkedIn, whatever. Of course, we have services, but really I believe in the power of these tools, and I want to share as much as I can with everybody. So those are 2 resources that any organization of any size can take advantage of.
And to listen to your podcast as well, because various people give tips throughout that, and that's free to watch as well. So you can listen to that, and you'll pick up some tips.
And a few stars here from the podcast. So I want to see what questions we have from you all. So please come up to the mics to ask. And then at the end, we just have a really quick call to action that we will close with so that you have one action you can take today. And just tell us who you are and what your question is.
Hi, good morning. I'm Molly Murray with the Autoimmune Association, and love everything that's been said here, and certainly connected with many of you in this room and on the stage. In terms of posting, and I think it's always finding the time and being cognizant of responding to individuals that are commenting on your post, right? Is there a sweet spot on how often you should be posting and how we should be thinking about that? And can you overdo it? So I just would love your thoughts on that, because I think, you want to have an impact when you're posting. And sometimes I see, folks who are maybe posting things that aren't necessarily relevant, or maybe it lessens the impact. So I'm just kind of curious, what is that sweet spot and how often should we be doing this? And maybe more is better. So I'd love your thoughts on that for everyone on the panel, and certainly Anthony.
Why don't you each say about how often you post, and then I can tell you what the research says.
How often? Well, so one thing I just want to say for those A-type personalities in the audience that are all worried about scheduling and how often you should do it, not that Molly's that, but I'm just, but in regards to, I don't comment on everybody that comments on every post. Some people would worry about that if that's your personality. I do the best I can to comment here and there. I don't comment on everything. You can't beat yourself up. LinkedIn isn't as much as Facebook socially that way, so people aren't offended when you don't comment or thank them for every single comment. So I don't thank everybody or comment on every comment either. I post it every couple days, or at least, I always am on the everyday looking if there's an anniversary or something I can comment or something I can share, but I'll try to come up with something creative every couple days, or I'll know something that we're posting, like our juvenile arthritis summer camp registration. I might reshare that, whatever it might be that I know our organization is doing as well. I don't always create my own idea, but then every few days I try to create something new as well.
Yeah, I think that's right. I particularly will just reshare if the society's page is sharing resources versus me sharing it and writing something new. I think that's really spotlights the work that the organization is doing. But really, if there's something cool or special, or I have a thought about something I want to share, but it's really, same. I check it every day, sometimes twice a day. I need to probably relax. I turn the notifications off on my phone because that gets tricky, but really not posting every single day. And also I really am aware, and Anthony would love to hear your thoughts on this, people who are posting just the same things over and over, that to me gets exhausting, and it sort of tunes me out. So I try not to do that, but if it's important, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say for me, similar to my fellow panelists, is that I don't have a sequence. If I feel like something's impactful, I will post it. I also reshare some of the association's content. Sometimes I post, every day. Sometimes I post every couple of days. It's just, I was in New York a couple of days ago with Abbott at their Above the Bias campaign. I thought it was something that was really impactful that the world, needed to see. And so, I don't have a set, I do check it quite frequently because I incorporate it into my day when I'm not in meetings and when I'm not on calls. It's just kind of a part of my everyday being.
Yeah.
And so I may not post every day. There may be some days I post every day, and there may be days where I don't post for several days. But, I only post something where I want to get a message out and it's impactful to people living with diabetes. So, yeah.
Can I actually add too? Actually, the reason I made that video was because I felt like if I posted every day about everything that was happening, it was going to be annoying. It was annoying me. And so I felt like, well, maybe if I make a video that just shows it all together, that would be, and it's one post so people can see it, that might be a better way to go. And it did pay off, but I think that was the initial thought process, was like, why do I want to put one thing up every single
And Anthony,
day?
real quick, I know you're going to share some stats, but regarding the board members and the volunteers that we all work with, is remember their LinkedIn profile is typically about their profession. Yeah. So they're sharing professional stuff for themselves. So as CEOs or your comm staff, whoever you have, reminding them to post about the organization that they're board chair of or that they're on the board for helps them a lot, because they're thinking professionally for their LinkedIn post. They're not going there and thinking, oh, I should post about the Arthritis Foundation Day. But when we send them something, they immediately do it. So you almost need to help your volunteers a little bit have stuff that they can post as well in between their professional stuff they're posting.
Yeah. So in terms of too much, if you post more than once within 24 hours, LinkedIn will depress the second post. So don't go crazy and do it too often. Your second post won't get a lot. But if you're somebody who says, I'm not very active, I would say, that's a surprise to some people, I think. If you're somebody who's not very active, I wouldn't worry about posting too much. I would worry about commenting, liking, and resharing content to start, because that's where the conversation begins. And if you just get on every day and like and comment on 10 posts of people who you want to deepen your relationship with, that's a win. Mm-hmm. Now, once you start getting into posting and resharing, if you click that share button, you can just click share, or you can do share with your thoughts and add a couple sentences. Take the time to add that couple sentences. It makes a huge difference to both the algorithm and the way people receive the information. And then when you are posting, I think what you said, I wouldn't worry about, like if you post once a month now, yeah, maybe get to twice a month, maybe get to once a week, but find things that are valuable for your audience. You're gonna notice if you share things that are valuable to you, but nobody's gonna care about, you'll get a couple likes, it's not that great. It's better to wait until you have things that are more valuable. So I'd see where you are as a baseline, and if your goal for the next 6 months is just to comment on other people's stuff, that's great. That's what you should focus on, and don't worry about posting too often, and then those moments will come up where you'll want to. Another question.
Hi, I'm Victoria Smart from the Susan G. Komen Breast Cancer Foundation. Hi, Katie. I'm not yet a client of Anthony, but perhaps I should be. Okay, looking forward to that discount. Could you all comment on the difference in value between likes, shares, and impressions, right? What do all these metrics mean? Which ones are the most important? What do you all value in terms of interaction with your content?
Yeah. Well, I want to say there's two sides of this. So when you like something on LinkedIn, you are pushing the gas pedal on it. So when Randy posts something and you think, I wish more people knew about that, when you like it, you're helping Randy's post get seen by more people, because it indicates to LinkedIn, this is worth showing to more people. When you comment on it, it's like triple gas pedal. It has about 3 times the impact. And then if you share it, it has more impact as well. So I want you to think about it first, not just from what are my inputs of my own content, but what am I doing with other people's content? Now, on the flip side, if you have a post and it gets 10 likes versus another post that gets 100 likes, it's telling you a couple of things. It's telling you that your audience it's resonating with them more. There's a higher rate of engagement. So you're probably doing something right to get that reaction. So to us, it's gonna indicate that. But you don't wanna be obsessed with those metrics, because each one is just an individual data point. When you go into your personal profile and you look at the metrics, if you see that over time you're getting more impressions, you're getting more engagement, you're getting more followers, these are indicators that you're building your audience. But I think it's really important for us to think about, just like here, you're not gonna come to an event like this and just hand out your business card to 150 people and leave. That's probably not gonna be a really great strategy, but you go home and go, I gave out 150 business cards, isn't that great? Well, maybe not so much. You have a couple great conversations and those folks ask for your business card, you can follow up and deepen the relationship. And that's what you're looking for, the engagement in the comments. Comments are gonna push the gas pedal more. And if you tag someone, like you tag Randy, and Randy doesn't log in and like or comment on that post, Randy's pushing the brake on your post. He by doing nothing, he actually had a negative effect. So when somebody, I know, I'm sorry.
Randy.
But I tell you that because if you're tagging a bunch of people who never log on to LinkedIn or some giant company that, you know, their policy is they don't engage with your post, it doesn't really help you. It's better to cultivate the relationships that are the ones that matter. Yeah. Do you have anything you want to add on that before we do our?
No, and I would just Google tips in regards to how to tag or how to hashtag, because you don't want to hashtag somebody, you want to tag somebody. So just make sure. And also the one thing I've always talked about is stay true to who you are. Chuck and I lead with our heart and maybe our family. Other people, you're not going to want to do that, and that's fine. I lead into my family. One of my pictures was my son there in Chicago where he goes to college. But if you're not that kind of leader or volunteer, or you don't do that professionally, you don't have to lead that way. Lead who you are, because being authentic will get your followers more engaged. They'll realize who you really are. It doesn't have to be like somebody else. So.
I know we have more questions, but unfortunately they are telling me we can't take it. But if you post your question on LinkedIn, we promise we will answer in the comments. We will all do it. And I just want to close by saying, what can you do right now as a next step? Number one, make sure you are following National Health Council on LinkedIn. Number two, see that little bell in the corner? Click that and say, I want to be notified about either all or the most relevant posts. But I say, why not all posts? Because it's so important that you want to engage with what the NHC is doing. Also, when you're posting, type that @ and tag the National Health Council or your organization. If you just write the words, LinkedIn doesn't know who you mean. But if you tag it like this, they're going to get notified, and they're pretty good about it. They'll like your post, they'll comment on your post, it'll amplify it. And go connect with Randy if you're, you have to be connected with Randy, I would hope already. But if you're not, you better do that, connect with Randy. And then lastly, here is, hold on, we'll just wait for the audio real quick. It's just a short clip.
Access to healthcare is a well-known barrier for many.
That was an awesome panel yesterday, Omar. And this post is on the NHC LinkedIn page right now. And you should go on there and click that repost button. And it's going to say repost or repost with your thoughts. Repost with your thoughts. Say why the Trusted Messengers Initiative is important for you or for your organization. That's going to make the biggest impact. And it won't take that long. One sentence about what you heard from that tremendous panel yesterday and why we have to have trusted messengers out there to communicate the patient voice. We all know how important that is. We want your networks to know how important that is. And you can make an impact by just clicking repost and then adding your thoughts. So those are our calls to action. Of course, you can also take a selfie with somebody here. That's nice too. So we really, I just want to say I'm grateful to NHC for having me back. I'm really grateful to all three of these chief influencers for being on the podcast and sharing their expertise. And again, if you post on LinkedIn with any questions, we promise we will answer your questions.
Well, there you have it. Some great insights shared by Chuck, Katie, and Steve that are, I think, more relevant today than ever as we think about the importance of digital-first leadership. The ROI they discussed, it's not just about metrics. It's really about building a foundation of trust that supports your organization's mission. So as you watch or listen today, I do want to hear from you. How has your own strategy evolved since you started thinking about LinkedIn, or you heard this conversation, or maybe found us at Chief Influencer? Please join the discussion. You can follow us on LinkedIn. You can share your thoughts in the comments. And if you're looking for help building your own chief influencers inside your organization, just reach out to Social Driver at socialdriver.com. We'd love to tell you more about how we can support you in that way. So thanks for being with us today, and we hope you enjoyed this episode of Chief Influencer.
Chief Influencer is a production of Social Driver. We help clients transform complexity into clarity with people-centered strategies. Whether you're looking to elevate the influence of your brand or of your leaders, check out socialdriver.com to learn more. For show notes or to nominate a guest, visit us at chiefinfluencer.org or follow Chief Influencer on LinkedIn.